By the time the last frightened visitor stepped off Alderhook Bridge, Delphine Roskell had already stopped thinking about the rescue. Cressida Wellow was safe. That mattered. Now the bridge mattered. Delphine knelt near the western approach and marked the deck drop, chain position, failed parapet connection, and the number of people removed from the span. A gentleman in a dark traveling coat approached from the lower gorge path. Was the collapse predictable? He asked. The failure was predictable, Delphine replied. The minute was not. He looked toward the sagging western side. What happens now? The bridge closes. For how long? Until someone stops treating the answer as a financial question. His expression changed slightly. Then a groom hurried down the path. Your Grace. Delphine turned. Leolin Markham, Duke of Salevern. The stranger who had watched from below was the man whose estate profited from every visitor crossing Alderhook. Leolin did not appear offended. You were correct before you knew my name. Delphine returned to her measurements. I intend to remain correct afterward. For the first time that afternoon, the Duke smiled. Not because she had impressed him. Because she had no interest in trying. Cressida arrived at Delphine's office 2 days later carrying an excursion ticket. Number 912. The official attendance report claimed only 386 visitors had crossed Alderhook that day. That cannot both be true, Delphine said. The excursion company argued ticket numbers continued from previous days. Cressida unfolded her receipt. Same date. Same booth. Same afternoon. Other visitors soon produced tickets numbered 644, 731, and 879. Then accounts clerk Loveden Price appeared after closing time with a private ledger wrapped inside plain paper. The trustees see one book, he said. The company uses another. The public ledger showed restrained attendance. The private revenue book recorded 1,074 paid admissions. More troubling was the timing. Groups had been admitted before earlier groups cleared the bridge. The excursion company paid bonuses when daily attendance passed certain targets. Leolin read the figures in silence. Sir Braith Osseland protested that closing the bridge would cripple the pavilion, gardens, and seasonal trade. Leolin shut the revenue book. A profitable destination does not justify an unsafe entrance. The excursion grounds closed that evening. For the first time during autumn week, Selvern's terraces stood empty. Bridgekeeper Isabet Crowell had recorded the western anchor for 14 months. Her pocketbooks were precise. Chain knock during heavy crossings. Deck tilt after crowded afternoons. Anchor box vibration. Longer clearing times. Repeated requests to reduce admissions. The official summaries told a gentler story. Seasonal noise. Expected movement. Cosmetic separation. No immediate concern. Independent ironwork examiner Bustian all opened the western anchor housing. The metal inside carried months of abrasion. Not one sudden failure. Repeated movement. Delphine stretched a measuring line across the masonry. The housing had shifted noticeably from its original position. Leolin stood beside her. Why did none of this reach me as a closure recommendation? Because warning became wording, Delphine said. He looked at her. Meaning? Every concern was translated until it sounded comfortable enough to keep selling tickets. Leolin returned to Salevern Court and opened the excursion correspondence himself. Among the papers was his approval for an advertising campaign projected to increase attendance by 30%. No reassessment of bridge capacity accompanied it. His signature sat beneath the expansion. That evening, he sent Delphine a copy without explanation. He did not ask her to soften the finding. The inspection plates looked convincing until Bustian laid them side by side. Different dates. Different supposed examinations. Yet several carried identical hammer marks. Some numerals had been recut. Oxidation had been cleaned away. One plate showed the same damaged corner across 3 separate dates. They reused them, Delphine said. The records claimed complete inspections. Some visits had consisted only of viewing the bridge from the approach. No anchor access. No chainbox opening. No deck level measurement. Yet full inspection charges continued leaving the maintenance reserve. Delphine followed the payments. The money did not vanish. It became stonework for the scenic pavilion, decorative lamps, a widened refreshment terrace, a new bandstand. Improvements designed to attract more people across the bridge whose maintenance account had paid for them. Llewellyn found his own approval on several expenditure sheets. His steward began explaining that the invoices had been grouped under general improvements. Llewellyn stopped him. "My signature remains at the bottom." Delphine glanced up. He did not claim ignorance as innocence. That mattered more to her than she wanted it to. Loveden Price finally opened the company's full revenue books. Alderhook itself was not the great source of profit. It delivered customers to everything beyond it. Each additional visitor meant money from garden admission, pavilion tickets, refreshments, concerts, carriage transfers, mineral spring subscriptions, souvenir prints. Every bridge closure cost the excursion company far more than a day's lost crossing fees. So maintenance became postponement. Postponement became tolerance. Tolerance became routine. Salevern Estate received a percentage of excursion receipts. Llewellyn stared at the figure. His own household had benefited from the same crowds that overloaded the bridge. His steward advised waiting until legal liability was established before returning any income. Llewellyn answered quietly, "Place every distribution from the disputed period into escrow. That may be interpreted as an admission, Your Grace. It is an admission that we received money while the bridge carried more than it should." Delphine heard about the decision from county trustees. Not from Llewellyn. He did not present restitution to her as evidence of character. He simply did it. That night, Delphine returned to the closed western approach. The damaged span hung silent above the gorge. For weeks, everyone had praised the view. Now there were no visitors, no music, no ticket sellers, only the bridge itself. And without the noise of profit around it, the structure seemed to be saying what it had been saying for months. It had been carrying too much. Delphine refused to prove the bridge unsafe by placing more people on it. Instead, she rebuilt the problem with numbers. A temporary test frame was constructed beside the gorge. Weighted sacks and iron blocks represented the recorded crowd loads. Bastien all measured chain response while Delphine compared the movement against Alderhook's surviving anchor data. The result was clear. The danger had not come from one unusually large crowd. It came from repeated crowd surges. Visitors stopped near the middle to admire the gorge. Excursion attendants continued admitting fresh groups before the earlier ones had cleared. Music schedules made it worse. When performances ended, hundreds moved toward the bridge within minutes. Loveden Price produced internal instructions. One sentence appeared repeatedly: "Keep the span lively." Visible crowds attracted more customers. Sir Braithosseland called it harmless promotional language. Delphine looked toward the weights bowing the test frame. A bridge cannot distinguish between enthusiasm and load. Llewellyn stood among the trustees. This time, he did not ask whether closure had been necessary. He asked how long the evidence had existed. The answer was uncomfortable. Long enough. The excursion posters were discovered inside Selvern's old ticket office. Across the top, in elegant type, "Under the patronage of His Grace the Duke of Salevern." Below it stood an illustration of Alderhook Bridge crowded with fashionable visitors. Delphine placed one poster before Llewellyn. "People saw your name before they saw the capacity board." He understood immediately. To the public, ducal patronage implied supervision, safety, trust. Even though legally it guaranteed none of those things. At the next trustees' meeting, Llewellyn withdrew Selvern's name from every excursion advertisement. Then he surrendered the estate's automatic advisory seat. One trustee objected. "No duke personally examines anchor chains." "Then no duke's name should be printed as though he does." The room fell silent. Delphine watched from the county table. For weeks, Llewellyn had apologized with money, records, and surrendered influence. Not speeches directed at her. For the first time, admiration began moving in the opposite direction. The public hearing took place inside the empty excursion pavilion overlooking the closed bridge. Delphine organized the evidence by load. People. The private ticket books proved overcrowding. Time. Crossing records showed fresh groups were admitted before earlier groups left the span. Movement. Isabet Crowell's pocketbooks documented months of anchor noise and deck tilt. Inspection. Reused plates proved complete examinations had been falsely recorded. Money. Maintenance funds had financed tourist attractions. Reputation. Selvan's name encouraged confidence the estate had not earned. Osseland remained composed. No bridge remains perfectly still. Movement is not the offense, Delphine replied. Pretending not to measure it is. He argued that closing Alderhook earlier would have destroyed local livelihoods. Cressida Wellow rose from the public seats. You counted my money more carefully than whether I was still on the bridge. No one answered that. Then Leolin submitted Selvan's accounts and accepted the estate's share of responsibility. Osseland lost control of the excursion company without ever giving them a dramatic confession. The records had already done enough. The Harroglass Crossing Charter followed. Alderhook would never again depend upon one company's assurances. The new rules required independent structural examinations, separate maintenance accounts, published annual reports, fixed capacity, timed admission intervals, keeper authority to stop crossings immediately, permanent movement gauges, recorded anchor measurements, tamper-evident inspection plates, no maintenance reserve used for tourist attractions, no commercial bonuses tied to visitor volume, public disclosure of estate interests, no automatic ducal seat, no concessionaire controlling both tickets and bridge operations. Isabet became chief crossing keeper. Bustion joined the independent engineering panel. Loveden helped build the new public accounting system. Cressida insisted that capacity limits be printed clearly on every ticket. Delphine completed her county report. Then she left the committee. No Selvan appointment followed. No decorative title. No permanent ducal commission. The Roskell Works Examination Office remained entirely her own. Leolin did not attempt to change that. Months later, Alderhook was still being rebuilt. A temporary ferry crossed beneath the gorge while workers strengthened the western anchorage. Delphine was inspecting the access path one evening when she met Leolin coming from the opposite direction. He stopped near a bend overlooking the river. "This is where I first saw you." She turned. "I thought you first saw me after the rescue." "No." He told her everything. He had seen her warn the attendants. Seen them dismiss her. Seen the bridge drop. Seen her catch Cressida. Seen her remain until every frightened visitor was off the span. Delphine shifted uncomfortably. "You admired a crisis. I admired what you did when you thought no one important was watching." Her expression cooled. Leolin caught the mistake. "No. Forgive me." He considered his words. "I admired what you did when you believed no one there had power to reward you. That was different." Her county appointment had ended. He held no authority over her office. There was no pending Selvan matter. So he asked, "May I court you?" Delphine studied him. The man whose name once appeared above an unsafe bridge had spent months removing that name from decisions where it did not belong. "You may begin with supper." "At Selvan?" "No." He almost smiled. "The Kingfisher Inn." Public dining room. 7. A structural precaution? An observational one. 3 years later, they married under a settlement protecting Delphine's work, income, reports, and independence. When Alderhook reopened, there was no grand ducal procession. Cressida crossed among the first ordinary visitors. A permanent capacity board stood at the entrance. Years afterward, someone asked Leolin whether seeing Delphine save a falling woman had made him love her. "No," he said. Delphine raised an eyebrow. "It made me curious." "And what made you love her?" He looked toward the bridge. Discovering that courage was only the most visible part of her. The visitor turned to Delphine. "And you?" She looked at the new capacity board. When he stopped asking people to trust his name and began helping build systems that did not require it. Leolin offered his arm. Delphine took it. Together they crossed Alderhook. Not ahead of everyone. Among them.